Okay, I'll introduce our speaker. Jennifer Graf Smith is a native of Kansan and attended Kapaun Mt Carmel High School in Wichita. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree from Washburn University in 1993. As a student, she was a member of the honors program, active in Delta Gamma, Nonoso, Phi Chi, the International Psychology Honor Society, and served as Vice President of the Washburn Student Association. Her fond Washburn memories include attending football, baseball, basketball games, intramural sports, and winning her student government election. Throughout her college days, Jennifer worked for the Kansas Secretary of State and interned for United States Senator Dole in Washington, D.C. She has been with Michelin North America since 2007. Jennifer is the company's Director of Image and Brands. She is responsible for everything people see, hear, and feel about Michelin's brands in North America. Jennifer manages a team of 8 people who are responsible for brand guidelines, social media, media buying, events, and community relations. They have won numerous national and global awards for public relations and marketing. Colleagues describe her as a thoughtful, strategic leader who is energetic, insightful, innovative, and forward-thinking, as well as bright, funny, clear, and engaging. Jennifer is respected for her communication skills and being a collaborative team player. Jennifer credits her psychology degree and experiences with student government and Greek life for kickstarting her successful marketing and communications career. She made some wonderful friends while attending Washburn. Several are here in the audience today, which is a testament to their longtime friendship. Although Jennifer has enjoyed a successful award-winning career, she considers her 2 children, ages 14 and 11, her proudest accomplishment. She currently resides in Greenville, South Carolina. Please help me welcome back to campus, Jennifer Smith.
So I'm going to test out this mic. Can you hear me okay? Is that good? Okay. So I'm not one to stand behind a podium, so I will be wandering throughout the group today. But I want to say thank you first to Susie for inviting me here. It's a great privilege and honor to be back on campus. I think the last time I was here was for the 150th anniversary and saw many of you here for that. So I have very fond memories of my time here at Washburn, and I appreciate all that it has done for me. And I'll share with you a little bit about that and how it's tied into the experiences that I've had since then. But I thought what I would do first is tell you first just about my story and ensure that you know a little bit about what I've done and where I've been since I was here on campus. And I'll talk about that first, and I'll share some examples of some recent work that I've done with Michelin so that you can see a little bit of the way that psychology and business, so that's just kind of what worked for me. So thank you for being here. Okay, so a little bit about my story and the journey that I've been on. I haven't had the chance to do this kind of a presentation, and I was on Clemson's campus last week and did this. And I always start with home, right? I always start with Washburn University and where I come from. Because many people, I travel all over the world, and many people aren't really familiar with Kansas, let alone with where Washburn is. So I feel it's an important part of my job as a graduate to act as an ambassador on behalf of the university. So I always start with Washburn University, and I oftentimes get questions about what in the world is an Ichabod. So that still happens. I also always refer back to my love of sports, and I'm a huge Kansas basketball fan still. I should have the Washburn Ichabods up there. I always follow them as well. But most people also recognize, of course, the KU brand. And of course it was fun over the last couple of weeks when they played the Clemson and beat pretty handily the Clemson team. A lot of my good friends have graduated from Clemson. I go to a lot of football games and stuff there because it's close. So, of course I'm always proud of the sports programs here from Kansas. But I've had the opportunity to travel a great deal since I graduated from Washburn. And I first went out to California. So my first job after college, and I'm very grateful to the women of Delta Gamma and the alumni that were part of the extended chapter here, because they encouraged me to become a leadership development consultant for Delta Gamma right after school. So my first job was traveling all over the U.S., visiting other campuses, And that got me an opportunity to get out to California. And my first job then, they asked me to pilot a regional program, and I was based then out of California and traveled all of California and Arizona. So that's how I landed out in California. And then I had the chance to work there and transition into my business career outside of that. So I had the opportunity to work for Accenture down in Los Angeles, which was my next job. When I was at Washburn, I thought I was going to go to law school, thought I was going to be in state politics. Then I had the chance, thanks in part to Mr. Heitz and some connections here through the Secretary of State, then Bill Graves' office, to work in D.C. for, at the time, Senator Dole. That was a huge opportunity for me to get outside the state of Kansas and see what else was out there, but then also to realize that that was not where I wanted to work long term. I was very idealistic, I think, when I went there, and optimistic, and thought, you know, God, I'm gonna go to DC, I'm gonna be able to really do great things there, and I could not stand the bureaucracy and the red tape and kind of the lack of actual action in some cases. I don't know that that's hugely changed since then, but I'm certainly glad that I had the opportunity to do that, because then I made the choice to go elsewhere. At that point, instead of going to law school, I decided I want to go into a career in communications, and I'd applied to go to the Annenberg School of Communications and got accepted at USC down in LA. But then at the same time, I was approached and had the opportunity to go to work for Accenture, which at the time was essentially like getting an MBA on the job. And I had the choice to either go to work, start making a little bit of money, not a lot, but start making some money, or go into debt and go to grad school. So I chose to get some real world on-the-job training, and I'm incredibly grateful that I had that opportunity, because I got a chance. I was a change management consultant for them, and I had the chance to work with companies like Hewlett-Packard, Toshiba, BASF, and Weyerhaeuser, and a couple of others. But it gave me a great opportunity to get exposure and learn about a number of different types of industries and any kind of major organizational change that they may go through, and the kinds of change management and communication needs that they had during those times of change in order to help their employees progress and move forward more quickly. That tied in very well to the psychology degree that I had here at Washburn, right? Because at the end of the day, you got to know your audience, understand the people that you're working with, the customers that you're targeting, and figure out what the best way to communicate with them is. So that was a great foundation, great learning bed. I traveled all over the U.S. for that job. I mean, I had projects in West Virginia, New Jersey, Detroit, Southern California, Northern California, and everywhere I went, I still had a network of friends and alumni that I knew either from Washburn or from DC in some way, or from Delta Gamma. And so that really gave me a great network around the country. So, landed in San Francisco, ended up then transitioning to work for a company called Netigy that some folks from Accenture left to start. So I did the technology consulting startup gig in Silicon Valley when that was hot. Interesting, very fast-paced. I think we blew through 200 million in less than 3 years. Then we sold to a company based on the East Coast, and that too provided a great number of learning opportunities. I was the director of knowledge management and people development for them for a few years. Then I decided, I was married at the time, did not want to travel as much. I've been traveling basically since I graduated from Washburn. I was on the road, traveling all over all the time. So then I was living in Sacramento and decided to find something that was not so travel intensive. And I went to work for VSP, which is the largest vision insurance provider in the country. And I worked in their corporate development department and had some strategic planning responsibilities for them. So that was kind of the first, I guess, chapter of my career, and had a lot of great opportunities there, and have done some fun work along the way. At that point then, my husband at the time was relocated to South Carolina. So we ended up in Greenville, South Carolina, and I had a 5-month-old and moved cross country, had to set up shop, set up the house, all that kind of good stuff. So I took about a 2-year break from work, which for those of you who've known me for a long time was very painful for me. That was the hardest job I have ever had, was staying home with my kids, because then I had my second one, Cindy. So I was, as soon as I'd had her, I was like, God, I gotta go back to work. Definitely, they're the biggest blessing in my life, and I was grateful to have a couple of years that I stayed home with them, but I was ready to go back to work. I just felt like there was a whole part of me that was not being utilized. So I then started to look at the large corporations in the Greenville, South Carolina area, and we have a lot of great industry there. Michelin's North American headquarters are there, GE's got a big presence, BMW's largest manufacturing facility is right outside of Greenville in Spartanburg. And so I kind of set my sights on one of those big companies in the area, because I knew, based on my experience, that I wanted to be with a big organization. And went to work for Michelin. They were hiring, and most people hire externally for change management types of consultants. And they were looking for someone to come in and work in their small tire business and help across their sales and marketing departments on the projects that were designed to help boost Michelin brand sales within North America. So it was kind of a perfect fit. I mean, I was, great timing, perfect experience, timing with my background. And so I went to work for Michelin 11 years ago now, and being in that position there was a great way to learn the industry and the category. God knows I never thought I'd end up working in tires, right? And Michelin is a lot more than just tires. It's really a mobility company. We're over 125 years old, almost 130 now. French-based organization, thus the Eiffel Tower. So I have a great opportunity to get over to France a decent number of times over the years. Even, 1-month training program that I had one summer over there. That was the closest to college I've ever had. Since then, probably ever will, but that was a great learning experience and a lot of fun too. So I've been really blessed with that opportunity. Susie billed me in my previous role. So when she booked me for this, my role was the Director of Image and Brands for North America, as she told you about. And we just went through a big global reorg over this last year. So in January I moved into a new role, Business Model Leader, which is what you saw on the front. And this is my 5th job in 11 years since I've been at Michelin. So I started on the small tire business side, change management consultant across marketing and sales. Then they asked me to start their digital, kind of the digital side of things. And I was responsible for all the digital ecosystem and communications for Michelin, for North America. And then I was responsible for overall change, for all communications for Michelin brand. So I was on the small tire business for the first part of my career there, then went into the corporate side and was Director of Image and Brands for the last 4.5 years. And then now I took the opportunity with this reorg to kind of take a step back and think, all right, what do I want to do next? Because I want to position myself not just for this job, but for the one after that. So I decided to move back into our marketing division, marketing side of the house. We now are organized by business-to-business lines and business-to-consumer. So in my previous world, small tires, that was business-to-consumer. And now I moved on to the B2B side of the house. So, and I'm responsible for strategic marketing for truck tire sales. Okay, so more the 5 to 10 year view of what do we want to do with truck tire sales, particularly for small fleets here in North America. Okay, so significant change and pivot for me. Gives me the chance to go deep now on the B2B side of the house, which will be very interesting. And I find Jay and I are working in very similar categories. He works for a company, we are a supplier to them. And and being closer to the customer, which is another thing I wanted to do. And then also, for those of you either who studied or teach on the marketing side of the house, right, I'd always been focused kind of in the final P of the 4 Ps, with the communication side, the advertising side, all of that. So kind of the sexy, glossy side of things, right? And now I'm way up front in the pipeline, and I have responsibility for determining what the market value is for this opportunity for us, and have long-term product portfolio perspective, distribution models, etc. So it's really exciting for me because it gives me a great opportunity to learn a completely different part of the business. Because if I want to run a business, be responsible for marketing overall for another company, etc., I need to have this type of experience as well. So while my little munchkins are finishing, are in high school, my son starts high school in the fall, my daughter starts middle school, this will be a good opportunity for me to focus on this different part of the business for the next few years. Okay? And then that's my third child. That's my dog, Caesar. He's a Michelin, and yes, he is sitting on my daughter in that picture. Okay? I have never owned a pet my whole life until about 3 years ago when my kids finally talked me into getting a dog. And so that's Caesar, the latest and probably last addition to my family. I hope anyway. So I thought that I would share, now that I've been in this role with Michelin, I thought I'd share a little bit about some of the projects that I worked on most recently. Hopefully they're applicable to the folks from the business community that have ever had to work on any kind of brand type of activity, but then also kind of some of this fun, sexy stuff. And then I'll show you the real world of like where I've been the last few weeks since I moved into this truck and tire portion of the world, which is nowhere near as glamorous. And I cannot wear white pants or heels, okay? But so, in this year leading up to the global reorganization that we did, we also have done a lot of brand strategy work. So if you're familiar with Michelin at all, you probably know it's a multi-billion-dollar organization, about 120,000 employees worldwide, and long-time company, always been under the Michelin flag. The Michelin brand itself is worth $8 billion. So as the director of image and brand, I took that as a very important responsibility to protect and promote that brand, right? So whoever it is you're working for, whatever company it is, whatever university representing the value associated with that brand is very important, critical. And what we had done at a macro level was we kind of we started buying, we expanded our portfolio, we had bought a number of companies over the last few years. So now we kind of looked at ourselves with this whole series of brands, series of smaller companies, et cetera, and we kind of had to figure out what were we going to do with managing that portfolio. All of those companies do align with our overall mission as a company, which is our purpose, which is we care about giving people a better way forward. So I mentioned earlier, we're a mobility company. It's really about much more than just tires. While we make every sort of tire you can imagine, we also provide a lot of mobility experiences. We also encourage mobility throughout the organization through our red guides and our green guides. You've probably heard of the Michelin-starred restaurants. That was something that, one of the most brilliant marketing moves of all times. One of the founding brothers realized, cars were just, like they started when it was still bicycles and cars were just being invented and all that. So when there were cars, they decided they had to help encourage people to get out and travel around the country in Europe originally. So they produced and provided guidebook information to tell people where to go, where to eat, where to stay, where they could get their cars fixed, etc. And that red guide and green guide tradition has lasted for over 115 years now. We also recently bought Robert Parker, or majority stake in Robert Parker, for those of you who are interested in the wine industry. And so we're doing some partnership types of events with them as it relates to overall lifestyle activities. That's the fun and sexy part of the business. So we had all of this, we had things that were going on and brands at the group level. We had commercial brands, for small tire side of the house, we own BF Goodrich, which you're probably familiar with. We own Uniroyal. And so we kind of took a step back and said, we've got to provide a better structure and framework for how we communicate about our portfolio. And we also are a very traditional, conservative, financially driven manufacturing organization that is not really big on revolution. And so we wanted to evolve the brand, but not completely have a revolution. We were not going to be a PayPal that goes out and spends $150 million overnight, pulls the drape off, new brand, new logo everywhere, rebrand all the buildings, right? We've got hundreds of thousands of points of sale around the world. That was not a financially viable option for us. So we knew that we had to do something that would evolve and be able to live in concert with the existing brand. So we created a new group identity and then revised commercial identity underneath that. Okay, so you're probably familiar with like the Cokes of the world, right? The Coca-Cola company at the parent level with the host of family of brands underneath it, Coke, Pepsi, Sprite, Fairlife, etc. So we decided to move more towards that kind of a model where at the group level, we have the Michelin brand. And then at the commercial level, we then also have a unique identity that's a little more, friendly, personable, etc. So that's been a really interesting project to work on because, again, largely it was driven at the global level, but North America as the largest, most profitable region, we have a tremendous amount of impact and input into those types of things. And as you can imagine, as it relates to the Michelin Man himself, both Europeans and the family, etc., are highly, highly sensitive to any kind of change you may make to the Michelin Man. And as you can imagine, that's been one of the most interesting parts of my job over the last couple of years is what you can and can't do with the Michelin Man. And you'd be amazed at what some people try to do. But anyway, I won't share any of those examples. We can talk about those later. But anyway, so that was a huge part of the work that I did over the course of the last year before I moved into this new role. The next, I want to share with you an example. I get the opportunity to work on a lot of product launches over the years. The ultra-high performance tires are about as sexy as it gets, right? These are the tires that fit on Corvettes and Porsche and Koenigsegg's and Ferraris and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of one absolute end of the spectrum in terms of the type of work I've gotten to do, and this talks about a series of events that we did last January to support the launch of our new Pilot Sport 4S product. So I'll just show you a quick video.
When you only settle for the best, how do you outdo yourself? The Michelin Pilot Experience. A launch event unlike any other. A gathering of 300 of the world's most passionate automotive minds for 2 days and nights of the exceptional. To celebrate and experience the next chapter of excellence in the Michelin Pilot family. The Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. We teamed up with the best content creators to share their experiences, their way to their fans, and partnered with Vice Media, bringing a 100-person film crew to create personalized long-form films tailored towards each influencer's individual audience.
I love tires, I love brakes, I love suspension, I love going back.
We created real-time social clips for every influencer, every single day, shot and edited on site.
I love you, Michelin Tire!
Creating over 600 terabytes of personalized film footage, including over 300 custom photo asset packages for over 10,000 pieces of shareable content.
The pilot event was unlike anything we've ever done before. It wasn't just about the tire, it was about the Michelin experience.
The results? Well, the results shattered any previous benchmark set for this type of an event. With some influencers posting over 20 times and impressions trending toward 1 billion for the year.
The Michelin pilot experience wasn't an event. It was a phenomenon, setting a new standard for how an industry launches a product.
This event is the new model. It's allowed us to promote the pilot school for us globally in every single key market.
The Michelin pilot experience.
Okay, so that was, obviously, those are the fun ones, right? They're very exhausting, they're very time-consuming, all that kind of stuff. But those definitely are some of the little bit more fun side of the business. But then I thought it was really important to also show the reality of kind of what I've pivoted into and the work I'm doing now because, one guy described it, he said, you have to be the Mr. Miyagi of truck tires for small fleets in North America. I was like, I got it, okay. He's like, you're not Daniel San, right? Like you are Mr. Miyagi. You gotta get out there, you gotta spend time with the fleets, you gotta understand their needs, right? You gotta get dirty. So so the guy to my right, or to your right there, next to me, he's my counterpart. He's got large fleets, I've got small fleets. So we're like a, tag team duo of truck tires here in North America. And then the next two people are the gals from Lithuania, the guys from France, and they're our counterparts at the global level. So we went to Canada the week before last to ensure that we really had a good understanding of the Canadian market because that's part of our portfolio. So we spent some time with our friends there, and of course you should know that I work hard and I play hard, and I try to take advantage of the great things in each of the cities that I get to visit. So we ended the week at a great jazz club in Montreal, which was super fun and unexpected. But the real part of what I did was on the front end, where we spent an entire day in Toronto in one of the suburbs that has become a very interesting East Indian hub of activity. So Canadians' immigration policies are very liberal. They're really encouraging immigration. There's a huge component of East Indians that have relocated to that area in Toronto, and they have jumped into the truck market, right? It's dirty, it doesn't have a tremendous amount of education level required. So you've got this highly Punjabi area of focus there where these guys are kind of dominating now the truck market in that area. So we traveled, our sales guy there, we hired a guy who's East Indian, speaks Punjabi. He's really been able to help penetrate that market because, they trust him, right? He can speak the language, all that. And so we spent a day with him, and it was cold. Much colder than here. And, walked around, looked at tires, asked them questions, spent a ton of time there, got dirty, tried to stay warm together, all that. We're also working, our guys now in the field are covering not just the truck tires, but they're also kind of the primary face for our ag products as well as our earth mover products. So we were taking a look at that tractor in the background too at one point. But really important to get out there and understand how your products are performing, what people think about them, what you can do better, and how we can better serve them. So really important part of the job. Also from a cultural standpoint, it's great to work for a multinational organization. The woman that's seated there, we were in the office in Laval the last day, she's Egyptian. She relocated to Canada via France and has now become a Canadian citizen. We were celebrating. She passed her test that day while we were there. And so the team there was very much encouraging her and celebrating that portion. So it's really great to be a part of a multinational organization, and it's given me an opportunity to really learn a lot of different things. So that's the part of it that's, you know, not quite so pretty, but really important to make sure you understand the full part of the business. And so it was a great opportunity for me. When Susie asked me to do this, I took a step back and she's like, oh, you got to come up with some tagline, you know, what are you going to speak about, all that. And everybody knows that if you're going for a conference, right, you want to pick the one that's got a good description, right? So I thought, you know, I come up with this, and then I was like, what the hell am I going to talk about? I was like, I need to take a step back. And it really was a good opportunity for reflection for me as I prepared for this, because I had been to another presentation a couple of weeks ago by the woman who's a bit of a mentor for me. She's the president of the 4As, Marla Kaplowitz. She used to be the CEO for MEC. You may be familiar with her, but she's great. And she had put together kind of a one-pager that she used to talk about her kind of overall philosophy and her principles and the things that she tries to live by in her work and job. So I completely, you know, full credit to her. I stole her template. And I thought, you know, this is a good time for me to really put those foundations on paper, right? Because when I stepped back to think about it, I was like, I have 25 years of experience now. I can't believe that it was 25 years ago that I walked away from this campus. You know, the McGiverns are here today. They're cousins of mine. And Dr. Farley mentioned that this is the time of year when people are coming, prospective new students are coming to visit the campus. Right? And I grew up in Wichita. My cousins lived here, and so I came up, and the McGiverns were gracious enough to let me stay at their house when I came up for that visit. Right? So they were generous and open-armed for me and helped me get that start here at Washburn. So I thank you, and I'm glad you're here today. It's really always very good to see you guys. But it's people like that play a role, and you all have the opportunity to play that role in someone else's life, right? They helped me ensure that I got a good start here. And I thought about, you know, what are the leadership principles and the things that I learned while I was on campus, and I was really happy to see Terry walk in the room, Terry Spinner-Benson, because I was going to share this story about her. You know, humility is something that I try to be humble in everything that I do, right? I've been very blessed, I'm very fortunate, but I try to always stay grounded and remember my roots and where I came from and the fundamentals of hard work that I've learned and try to practice every day. But part of that I learned here on campus, right? There was one time in the sorority house, Terry and I were sisters, and she is one of the people that had the courage to tell me I had said something that came across just horribly bitchy or mean or something, right? And she had the courage to hold me accountable and say, you know, you need to think twice about how you say something and how you talk to somebody. And I'm grateful for her to this day for holding me accountable, because that's really important, right? It's important to be humble. It's important to be honest with people, and it's important to hold other people accountable. So that's something I definitely learned here. I learned how to listen. I learned how to listen from many of my professors. And Dr. Stevenson, I'm glad to see you here. I had many psychology classes with her. But listening to those around you that are teaching you, that you may not even realize at the time are teaching you. So that was something that I learned here. And then also the courage to take the next step, the courage to take the opportunities that are presented to you. Mr. Heights, you definitely helped support me, both in the time that I was on campus and was interested in campus politics, supported me when I was working with Mr. Bugler at Washburn Student Association, and then with he and Bill Graves, then Secretary of State, future governor, helped encourage me and get that opportunity to go to DC for that internship. So that was a big step for a little girl from Kansas that had never really traveled much outside of the state. So you gave me the courage to take those next steps. So thank you. The know your audience piece, I mentioned that earlier, right? My dad was like, you're going to get a psychology degree? What in God's name are you going to do with a psychology degree, right? And I didn't really know at that point, but that has really been hugely helpful in all of my communications and marketing work, right? You got to know your audience. You got to take the time to know the people, know why their behaviors are the way that they are as it relates to either purchasing a product or listening to information or adapting to change, right? Many of those things are built on some really simple foundational components that I learned within the psychology department. So that was great. Pivot, okay? I love basketball. I was the only girl on my all-boys basketball team, I think, in 3rd grade, because back then we didn't have girls' teams. So I started playing basketball at a young age. I loved watching Lance and John and the Washburn Ichabods, and my mom, my pledge mom, Amy Bybee, who was a basketball player here at Washburn also, was always a big fan. But you know, you got to pivot, right? When you're in trouble, when you're trying to pass the ball elsewhere, you learned at a very early age that the pivot can be an important thing to do. And so again, as I shifted and had this opportunity most recently with my next job, I realized this is a time I got to pivot. I mean, I am super comfortable in the glass house, right? Doing the work that you see with the Pilot Sport All Season 4 product launch. I can do that in my sleep. I can do that all day long. But if I really want to go to the next level, if I want to take the next step in my career, then I got to pivot. And I got to do something that's not comfortable, maybe hard, very much less glamorous, but much more important for me from a development standpoint. So you always got to pivot. You got to pay attention to the details. And I learned that while working at the Secretary of State's office. John Reinhardt was great. He gave me a lot of great opportunities there. And one of the things I had to do was, after the elections, we would publish the election results, right? I don't know, 100 and some pages, right? Every county, every district, what the vote tallies were for each of the candidates. As you can imagine, highly tedious work. And so I'm in there, like, typing it in. I'm the master person, getting everything lined up, all that kind of stuff. Very detail-oriented work. A lot of people don't like to do that kind of work. But the details matter. Every vote matters, right? Every line matters. And I didn't realize at the time that that's really foundationally what I was learning, that those details matter. And in my job as the Director of Image and Brands, every single piece of material that was coming out on behalf of our brands came through my team in my office, okay? Everything. Posters, point-of-sale materials, digital assets, TV commercials, all of that. And again, we represented an $8 billion brand with incredibly fantastic products. All of the materials we create should have the same attention to detail and level of quality as our products. And that was our job. Often referred to sometimes as the brand police. People hate the brand police, right? Like, I'm in there with the red pen going, dude, you've got the wrong product name on this. No, you can't release that, right? But every detail mattered. So again, came back to the experience that I had here. Nurturing talent, teamwork, women helping women. I've referenced that often. I really was fortunate to have the support of people like Mark and his wife Lisa, of the tremendous women, Susie being one of them that was an alumni, the Delta Gamma Network, other fraternity friends. Jay Lang and I were in the student government together and spent a lot of time together and had a lot of fun and learned a lot. So I was really fortunate that people recognized in me and gave me opportunities, and I really try to make sure that I take the time now to seek that out and look for that in others and help nurture the next generation. I mean, it was really scary at one point about 3 years ago when there were young women in the company that were coming to me and they were like, oh, how did you balance having kids and work life and being in a totally male-dominated culture and company and French hierarchical, patriarchal company, all this, right? And I kind of stopped and I was like, oh my God, I am the adult in the room now? Wow, that's pretty scary. And for those of you who've known me for a long time, you know that that is pretty scary. But I think it's really important that we all take the time to nurture the next generation and to develop the next level of talent. Because had it not been for the support of those before me, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I really try to make sure that I'm doing that for the folks coming up as well. So with that, again, I want to thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. It's great to see the friends and family from long times past, and I just appreciate this chance to be here and share with you my story. And I'll open it up for questions, anything that you guys may want to ask. Yeah?
If you had to pick one strategy and one firm to get your message across, what would it be?
I would say it depends on your objective. So too often, a lot of people just want to jump straight into the tactics. Right? And Amy, I don't know which part of the business you're on, but you would probably, hopefully, back this up too. Too many times people are like, oh my God, I want the sexy, flashy thing, Social media is hot right now. I gotta have a Twitter channel or whatever, right? I always say time out. And if somebody's coming to me and want to throw money at advertising, I always say stop. Who are you trying to reach and what are your business objectives? Because that's what it should be based on. Not just what the newest, latest, fanciest, flashy thing is. It really depends on what your objective is. Yeah?
Obviously, Michelin is a multinational company all around the world, but being that it's a French company, did you have anything that just kind of stood out to you as being the company culture, like European, overtly European, I suppose?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. And so when I worked at BASF is a German company. Hewlett-Packard being an American company, that's one thing. Toshiba was Japanese owned. So I've had the opportunity to work with some different kinds of cultures. The French culture is an interesting one. And again, not to be completely stereotypical, but it is very patriarchal. It's very male dominated. And I've received a lot of coaching over the years that as a strong, independent, outspoken woman, I have to really tone it down when I'm working with the French men. They're very intimidated by strong American women. I mean, just call it what it is. So it's really a challenge for me personally, but I think it's a fun, interesting one, right? Like, I love a good challenge and very competitive. So that also is part of what I learned here at Washburn. So it's been a really good learning experience for me to figure out how to navigate and work within that culture. They care a lot about what college you went to. Over there, it's very caste-oriented. And so the folks that went to the top business schools, they're golden, right? And to a fault in some cases, which is hard for me, right? Because I feel like I don't care what school you went to. If you're not doing a good job, I don't care if you went to L'École Grande in Paris and I went to Washburn University. I'm a hell of a lot smarter than you are. And I'm doing good work, right? So that's been something I've had to, adapt to a bit. But it's also a very warm, very familial culture that respects overall experiences, which I think is great. The work that I've got to do with our teams on the travel and lifestyle business is really fun, good work, right? Like, who doesn't love good food and good wine? And boy, the French do it right. Yeah, it's not great for my waistline, but at this stage, I'm just living my fat and happy life, so it's good. What else? Any other questions? Yeah.
Jennifer, you do have a few students here. What would you tell them about pursuing their careers and finding their path going forward?
Well, I think get out there and try something is most important. Again, because a young woman on Clemson's campus asked that same thing because she heard me talk about my story about DC, and she is preparing to go to DC this summer. And so she was like, would you still do it again? Would you go? I was like, heck yes, absolutely. Because you don't know unless you try. And I'm really glad I had that opportunity, because then I learned, okay, that might not be exactly the path I want to take, but I don't regret it for 1 second, right? It was a tremendous learning opportunity for me. And so I really encourage students to get out and get real world experience. Ask an alum to partner and have an intern opportunity. Companies like ourselves, we're not going to hire anybody that doesn't have any kind of work experience. And it's shocking to me how many kids come out of school today without ever having any kind of real world experience. So I say get out there, get your hands dirty, and make the best of it, and figure out you can always learn something from that experience. Clayton.
I guess the prediction of millennials not owning as many vehicles going forward.
Yes.
And autonomous vehicles.
Yep.
How does that change Michelin's 5-10 year vision?
It's really interesting. We've got a global summit called Moving On that's kind of all about sustainable mobility, and it's fascinating to see what the trends are. Your opportunities for a company like us will shift into a more fleet-oriented kind of model, potentially, right? Zip cars, in big cities, that is taking off. So we don't think that the overall park will shrink that much, but we think it'll just shift in terms of how and where we partner. And again, we're looking at things like, how do you develop the next generation of a product that is more sustainable, that's 3D printable perhaps. And so we're kind of evaluating things that way, but we're working with the companies like Tesla on their autonomous vehicles. How might that change the product needs? And to me, it's really exciting. It's very, very exciting. And autonomous, quite frankly, on the truck side is really interesting because they're one of their biggest challenges is recruiting and retaining drivers. There's a huge driver shortage in that category. And so for them, they look at autonomous vehicles and the potential there to be a really create a new dynamic for drivers. So almost think more about like a pilot of an airplane. In many ways, they've been operating in an largely autonomous model for quite some time. And there's much more prestige around being a pilot of an airplane, right? But they're really just driving a bus, right? And so, same kind of thing, we think that technology being implemented into a truck environment, there will still largely need to be some sort of man-made or human-involved role with that. And it may actually make that a more appealing type of job for the next generation because it will be so technology enabled.
Jennifer, are we drawing for truck tires or car tires? Kidding. Now that 2 months ago it was cars and now she's into trucks.
Yes.
Okay, let's pick one out of there. Somebody's going home with a free set. Michelin tires, we got a certificate here. So she's going to pull out the first one. And then we'll draw for a couple of really measly door prices after giving away some.
Mr. Troy Abel. Oh, he did. He just left.
Ooh.
Okay.
Must be present to win. Absolutely, that's the way it is with that's the way it is with the door prices. We don't, it's very, very sorry, Troy.